obviously Bilal is out. He was out for the Celtics game, what was probably one of the worst games that the team has put together so far this season, which is saying a lot, unfortunately. But they got blown out by the Celtics. And then after the game, Brian Keefe, this is per Bijan Todd, said that the team is going to be taking a step back because of this, and we need to, quote, we need to reevaluate what we're doing. Troy, this feels like a difference in tone from a lot of Brian Keefe's comments over the past few months here. What do you make of this right now?
Yeah, well, this is one of the first times that I've heard Brian Keefe actually like be accountable and have a self realization that what they're doing is not good enough. And so I think a lot of times earlier in the season, like I would get kind of frustrated with some of his answers to some of these questions because it's like you're not really explaining some of the decision making and stuff that you're doing, and then the results on the floor show clearly that that's not up to whatever standard that anybody would set for a professional team. And so the fact that he acknowledged that that we've taken a step back. This is not the product that we want to put on the floor. Like anytime you have a 45-point home loss, like to the Boston Celtics, who don't have didn't Jason Tatum hasn't laced his sneakers up the whole season. Jalen Brown didn't play in the game, and they still got boat raced at home. Like I really think that there are some things that they needed to take a step back and look at, and so I'm glad to finally hear those words come out of his mouth.
All right. And one of the things that I think a lot of people are having some criticism for him with this most recent game was how he started the game out. No Bilal, which means that there is now an opening at the wing spot, and he decided to move forward with Jameer Watkins. Greg, was that a move that you anticipated seeing Watkins in the starting lineup?
No, I mean he had played in 4 games this year in a total of 33 minutes. Like, I mean, I don't think anybody expected it. And I go back to like you were just talking about like what Brian Keefe said, a change in tone. I'll take you back to something Will Dawkins said preseason, and it was that minutes will be earned and not given. This season, that has not been true at all. Minutes are just being handed out. I mean, Jameer Watkins, I liked him coming out of FSU. I thought he was a great prospect. Got some comparisons to like a Lou Dort, physical defender, racked up steals in college, all of that. This isn't any type of shot at Jameer, but he had played 33 minutes the entire season. You had Will Riley, who just dropped 36 in the G League, and he's coming off a career high 13 points in a career high in terms of minutes against the Sixers. And you said, you know what, we have injuries and all that. I'm going to go with this guy who I barely play over Will Riley, who showed in NBA action that like I can produce when given the role. That doesn't scream to me that minutes are being earned and not given. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not the biggest deal. If Will Riley starts, maybe the Wizards lose by 35 instead of however many they lost by, 45. Like, it's not that deep, but it is when you think about the message and the culture that's trying to be said in Washington. It's like your GM and your head coach are preaching this one thing, and it's not true at all. You have a guy in Jameer Watkins that barely played, and he's just being handed those minutes. Jameer Watkins did not earn those minutes. I know maybe he did in practice because I'm not there, but from an outsider's perspective, you saw Will Riley play really well there. Even Cam Whitmore, who Troy mentioned it last night, I think, he hasn't been playing great as of late, but there's certainly been parts where he played well and could have started. He also didn't start. You had started Champagnie in these roles the entire season, like down a wing, whether it was Bilal or whether it was one of your other players like Middleton or McCollum. Like if they're not playing, you would go to Champagnie, and you decided not to go to Champagnie and go to Jameer Watkins. It's like you're passing up all these guys that probably deserve these minutes to go to a relatively unknown that, to an outsider's perspective, has not earned those minutes. That was an interesting decision. I think it was probably the wrong decision, and it definitely isn't a decision that aligns with what the GM had been preaching in the preseason.
Yeah, Greg, you brought up a very valid point about how the contradictory nature of what the messaging is that's coming from the Wizards, from the head coach and the GM, Will Dawkins, and then what is actually being done on the basketball court. And so with the Jameer Watkins thing, like I thought about it a lot last night, and the best reason I could come up with was the fact that because Bilal was out and he's their defensive stopper, they felt like we wanted to kind of like interchange that spot with another defensive stopper. But like you said though, like they said that minutes would not be just given out this year. And to be quite frank, like Jameer Watkins hasn't really played well enough on the floor to have earned that starting opportunity. If we're just going to keep it real, and so yeah, like I think that Justin Champagnie probably definitely deserved to have that opportunity to start, and this is a guy who produces every time he steps on the basketball court, and so I really I'm just concerned with the fact that the Wizards front office and the coaching staff that they're saying one thing and actually tangibly doing another.
Right. And Greg, as he said, obviously this probably doesn't have much of an impact on the single game, but it does have a larger implication for the team. You are adamant. Everyone in this front office was adamant that this is the direction that we're taking the team in. We're trying to have everyone fight for their minutes and earn their minutes. And to have this fracture in such an obvious way, I'd have to imagine that it has an impact on the players of like, all right, you're telling us this, and we are putting this effort in. Like if you're a player like Champagnie, who has been, as Troy said, putting constant effort and rising to the occasion for every single minute he's been on the floor, how does he perceive this? Where he has to feel internally like, I've earned that start, and I just didn't get it this time. But Isaac, you were there at the game. What did you see from the team as a whole in this loss?
They were dejected and like just kind of checked out. Like halfway after halftime, you could tell they were checked out. And what was it wasn't even that they bothered me that they were checked out. It was everybody else, like in media, everybody else noticed, like, man, the energy just dropped right after halftime. Whatever happened, whatever adjustments that were supposed to be made, because they were down at seven at one point. Like they were in the game. It was about to be a great game. Whatever happened between those walls in the locker room, I couldn't tell you what happened. It was weird. It was an odd thing to watch them just be completely defeated and not stay even kill and try to go after the win, because it was a winnable game yesterday for them. So it was just odd, man.
And that's disappointing to hear, because I was actually at the game on Monday in the win over Milwaukee, and the energy was great. It was a capacity crowd that was admittedly fairly low, but everyone brought an immense amount of energy in the fourth quarter because they felt like they were in the game. And to hear it go off the rails and the fans to just completely check out and the energy to completely be devoid of it in the arena, that's very unfortunate, and certainly not the direction that this team wants to be going moving forward.